What's up, you radical human? Welcome back to the show. Today in the studio, I had my new friend Sean Lake, BUBS Collagen. So obviously a conversation all about collagen, but the story that led to the birth of the brand. His best friend Glen, a Navy SEAL that tragically died protecting lives, and the hero and the legacy that lives through BUBS Natural Collagen now. But we talked about why Navy SEALs are so special, what it means to really challenge yourself and find meaning in life and come to your edge. We talked about the glory days of CrossFit. We talked about our mutual buddy and my training partner, Rory McKernan, and how this world is so small and connected, but we're all here to serve the same message, which is empower you, help you get better through real nutrition, mindset, adversity. Such a fun conversation, such a rad guy. Let's get into it with Mr. Sean Lake. Sean, thank you for making the trip, man. I just got to play Uber driver and pick you up from the lovely Dripping Springs. You're standing outside dressed like you just came from the West Coast in the early morning and blistering in the Austin heat. Welcome.
Yep, I love it. Thank you for having me here.
Yeah, dude. We were talking, it's so many random or maybe not so random little connections. The biggest one, shout out to my boy, Rory, who's my training partner now at 5 a.m. and your first CrossFit coach. How crazy is that?
That is some real small world stuff. Rory McKernan in 2008, this is a lifetime ago in CrossFit years, 16, 17 years ago, literally taught me how to do the air squat, taught me how to, just do all your basic functional movements. And I used to drive him crazy because I was like the world's worst student, and I just wanted to ham it up and clown. And he's like, dude, it's 6 a.m. I don't even want you to be funny right now. Just learn how to squat.
What was that journey like for you getting into the CrossFit? Because I know back in the day, you cut your teeth as a professional snowboarder. Like, was CrossFit afterwards, during it, adjacent to it?
So it was 100% afterwards. You're right. I got really lucky. I chased a dream of becoming a professional snowboarder in my 20s. This was in the early 90s.
Yeah.
And I literally dropped out of college in 1990 and moved to Snowbird, Utah. And that was like my dream, was to go and become a pro snowboarder. After a couple seasons of, taking your lumps and getting banged up, I eventually made it, and snowboarding allowed me to travel the world, and it was an amazing time in the sport. So the 90s was really undefined.
Like very counterculture still, right? Super trendy, like punk rock, let's go.
It was 100% punk rock, screw the skiers, we're better. Like there was all this culture war stuff going on. It was awesome. Like, and we were all in the heyday of that. It hadn't become an Olympic sport yet. And then it did during the later part of my career. Snowboarding paid for college. Like, it was a great chapter. There was no training in snowboarding back then. Like, nobody went to the gym. So me as a 20-something-year-old, I would hike up a mountain and ride down it, but there was no training for the hiking up or the stability muscles or the things you would do to ride down it. It was just do it. Like, you just do it by repetition. There's far more specialized focused training now than there was then. When I got done snowboarding, I turned 30. I take a job in snowboarding, which moved me to San Diego. And I kind of laugh about it now, but like, I kind of got fat. And I didn't really get fat, but I wasn't training. And I was traveling, 150 days a year to all the different snowboard competitions. And, I was working with a young kid. I was working with Shaun White, young kid on the come up, just about to go to the Olympics and start blowing up. And it was a great chapter, but I wasn't training. And now during this time, kind of rewinding, when I dropped out of college to move to Utah in the first place, I did it with my best buddy, a guy named Glen Doherty. And Glen had his dreams of becoming a pro skier. So here I am becoming a sponsored snowboarder going pro, and my best buddy wants to be a pro skier. It's the 90s. It was a bad time for that industry. He was a great athlete. Didn't make it. The few times I would train would be with him, because he always trained. Like, he was kind of our jock buddy, and he always took care of himself. So, every once in a while I'd be like, oh, what are we doing? Let's go do a workout. And I would just get the crap kicked out of me by him. Well, fast forward to we're 25, and Glen decides his next challenge is to join the Navy and become a Navy SEAL. This is a guy who used to tour with the Grateful Dead, party all summer long, but he would always take care of himself. He was in the gym. And he always loved adventure. And skiing was his adventure until he realized, I can't really make a career out of this. What about this other job? It looks insanely hard, super fun, tons of adventure, shoot guns, cool. And a myriad of personal challenge opportunities that he saw. So the next thing I know, he goes and goes into the Navy, and a year later, I'm at his BUBS graduation.
Wow.
Well, when I started becoming fat, he was stationed in Coronado. I was living up in Encinitas, which is just a little bit north of San Diego. And, he kind of like, calls me out a little bit, and I'm ready to be called out a little bit. And when your best buddy, kind of like gives you a little rib, you're like, all right, what do I need to do here? And he's like, you need a road bike. You got to lace up some running shoes. And he was big on Ironmans and triathlon at the time. So I was like, well, I'll surf. That would be my swimming sport.
Yeah.
Because I need those sideways sports in my life. And then I started running, and that sort of started the journey. And I, shed the pounds, maybe drank a few less beers. And then, gradually in your 30s, your body's changing.
Yeah.
My body started to change. What I recognized was if I kept up with it, I could keep doing the activities that I loved.
Right.
And this has been a theme in my life. Ever since I got done being a sponsored snowboarder, I really fell back in love with the sport because it wasn't a job anymore.
Yeah.
It was the lifestyle and the culture and the feels. The feel of riding down a mountain on a snowboard. It's unlike anything else I've experienced. I mean, it's like riding a pool on a skateboard, catching a great wave. There are these moments that you get from those sports. And I recognized that I wasn't going to get any better at it as I got older. I was going to get worse. And, pardon my French, but fuck that.
Yeah.
So in my mid 30s, I was like, nope, I'm going all in on fitness. And it really became addictive. I think the way there's other really bad habits that become addictive, I chose that as my addiction. Fitness guided me through a divorce. It guided Glenn through a divorce that he had, and we kind of fed off each other. And then we discovered CrossFit. And, he brought it into my life in 2008. He had returned from a deployment in Iraq, came back, and he's like, oh man, I got this new thing. It's called CrossFit. We're going to do it. Here's this website. And we went to our local YMCA in Encinitas, and we learned how to, have big spasming, kipping pull-ups and kicking up against a mirror, trying to do these push-ups on our heads. And the whole place thought we were maniacs, but it was super fun.
It's so fun, man. And so you were like, there's a lot of romanticization of the glory days of CrossFit right now. And there's a lot of stuff going on with the change and the sale. And, like back in the 2006 and 2008 era, you were pretty heavily involved in some way.
So I actually was. This really started in 2008. My day job at the time was I was the director of sports marketing at DC Shoes, which was owned by Quicksilver. So DC Shoes, we were there launching, we had a snowboard line, a BMX line, we had skateboard shoes, we had a surf line. We were in everything. Really exciting time to be there. And then my kind of hidden passion was training and fitness, because anytime I went to the mountain with these pro snowboarders who were 10, 15 years younger than me, I wanted to keep up. Yeah. And I wanted to be relatable, because if I tell them, hey, we're going to this photo shoot, here's a 110-foot jump that we have to hit, I want to be credible with them to be able to talk about the things that we need done. Fitness was a gateway to that. And then selfishly, I still wanted to hit the jump.
Of course.
Of course. Maybe not that big, a little smaller. Yeah. But I still have that juice in me. So it was an incredible time. And CrossFit was on its own little blow up. I didn't know that much at the time. But funny enough, in 2009, the owner of the gym, SEALFIT in Encinitas, was owned by a SEAL named Mark Devine. And Mark tapped me on the shoulder and said, go get your level 1 cert. So I've got a day job. Like I'm hobnobbing at the X Games, and I went out and I kind of secretly one weekend went and got my CrossFit coaching certification, the level 1. And I met Greg Glassman there, who's the founder of CrossFit. And I met a guy named Dave Castro, another Navy SEAL, because I seem to have them all over my life, who was like the head of the CrossFit Games. A couple months later, I get a note through Rory that these guys want to talk to me about this thing called the CrossFit Games. I'd never heard of the CrossFit Games, but in 2009, it was a thing to celebrate fitness and crown the world's fittest man and woman. Again, I knew none of that. But I ended up going to lunch with Dave Castro, and he's like, hey, I got this problem. I run this event, and I got kicked out of the facility that we do it. I'm like, oh, where were you? He's like, well, it's my house in Aromas. It's a ranch. And I'm like, oh, okay. He's like, yeah, the fire department won't let us do it anymore, so I need a new facility. I'm like, well, how big do you want to go? And they were just about to sign the Reebok deal, and a bunch of money was about to come in the sport. So long story short, I ended up helping them land the Home Depot Center, which became the StubHub Center, which was the home of the CrossFit Games for like 6 or 7 years.
That's crazy.
And I helped them do the contract because we'd done facility contracts like that, when I was at DC. So I was like, oh, this is how you do it. This is how you navigate it. Which was epic because I get free tickets to the X Games.
Yeah.
So, I'm sorry, free tickets to the CrossFit Games when I want to go. So, it works out.
That's dope, man. That's really cool. And not to spend too much time on the CrossFit thing, but it's like you said, you found it way longer ago than I did. And my biggest regret now is like, man, I wish I found this a bit sooner. It's so fun. I'm 2 and a bit years in. But like I said, it is a bit tumultuous right now. It seems like you're still pretty tapped in and still passionate about the sport. It's just fun to wiggle on these things now. CrossFit is for sale. I have to ask you this, because he's the GOAT. Should Rich buy CrossFit?
No, absolutely not. Rich has too many shiny things. We're talking about Rich Froning, of course, the most legendary figure in CrossFit. But no, I think he loves hunting and going out and chasing his passions. Yeah. I would love to see Rich more involved as a spokesperson and kind of a legend of the sport. Yeah. I think he would have a great role there. And I think the new ownership team, whoever they end up being, would do a great job if they were to tap into the elder statesmen, male and female, of the sport that really get the culture to help foster that and bring it back in a different way, because culture shifts as time shifts. Right. I still practice it. I'm insulated now from kind of the trappings of CrossFit. Is it for sale? Is it not for sale? What's Don Fall going to do, the new CEO? And I've kind of gone back to it the way I appreciate snowboarding. Yeah. It's not my job. It's something I do, and I can go into a gym and have a great quality experience. I get my heart rate up. I break a huge sweat. I have a phenomenal time, and I leave hopefully a little sharper, a little better, maybe a little more tired. But the politics of it, thankfully, I've stayed pretty clear of. I did a couple short consulting gigs to help them out, to help Reebok out during those great, glory years when it was growing like crazy. But I am optimistic that CrossFit lands in a really good space. Yeah. And that they have learned their lessons from the rise of the F45s and the kind of knockoff fitness regimens, and they can re-embrace that, hey, this truly is for everyone. It's scalable, it's adaptable, check your ego at the door. All of those great elements still apply. And I think they'll be able to open themselves up to recapture former CrossFit folks. That's it, yeah. And engage in new folks that maybe have just been so put off by the media, that is definitely painted in a polarizing fashion. No doubt, yeah. I wish them luck. I'll be there. Yeah, well said. Yeah, and I think they'd be wise to bring in as an advisor or just as a personality, people like Rich. Heart and Soil just sponsored the Mayhem Classic last weekend, and all the comments are just like, this is what CrossFit is. Yeah. This right here. The programming's great. The delivery is great. The banter's great. And, Mayhem have been saying as an organization, we are so back. So let's see if we can do that. I think that'd be really cool to see. I like it. Yeah. So you mentioned SEALs. You said they've seemed to have been very, very instrumental in your life, and you've been exposed to a lot of them. Before we talk about the very specific SEAL that made the biggest impact on your life and is the kind of the synergy for BUBS, what makes SEALs special? Wow. Number one, they're on a pedestal. So if you know someone's a SEAL and you know anything about that community, I think you immediately have a built-in respect for what they've done to earn that pedestal. And look, they're regular folks like everybody else. They just chose to do a really hard job. And they chose to do a really hard job that very, very, very few people could do, would do, should do. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I mean, they get elevated onto a pedestal. That doesn't make them special. Each individual character and each individual, everyone's special in their own way. I've been fortunate that I've met some phenomenal SEALs that are great people, and I'm lucky to have them in my life and call them friends. But I wouldn't give the blanket statement of the whole community as they're all special. They're special in what they've done to achieve that status. It's the character that seems to be just woven throughout the entire community that supports that. So I have yet to interact with folks from Naval Special Warfare in my years as friends or associates or in some work capacities that just haven't all been just fun people to be around, that are stand-up characters that you want to be around. Yeah. And if a byproduct of that is that, hey, as a civilian, you kind of lift yourself up a little higher, maybe you move a little better, you just apply yourself with a little bit more intention. What a cool like cast off of being in that community.
Yes, absolutely. So. Like that fifth monkey effect that they talk about. If you hang around 4 smokers, you'll become the fifth. Or if you hang around 4 Navy SEALs, you might not become a Navy SEAL, but you'll be a better version of yourself for it.
Hands down. I mean, I can say that I've learned a ton from spending those years at a gym called SEALFIT with a bunch of instructors that were SEALs or were going into the teams. And I've watched folks come in as high school athletes, turned into going through the pipeline, coming out and serving, 5, 10, 15 years in that community during the chapter that I've been associated with, SEALFIT and Mark Devine and that whole program. And yeah, it's infectious. Like I never wanted to be a Navy SEAL, but I became friends with a bunch of them.
Yes.
And if they, in their own way, kind of cast off this glow that helped me level up and maybe perform a little bit better or push myself a little bit harder, man, I'll take that all day long.
Yeah. Hell yeah. And talk to me about a special Navy SEAL for you, your best friend, Glen.
Yeah, so, it's a funny thing because Glen and I met in middle school. And in high school, we really became like best buddies. Like we're both middle children. And we both were kind of a little black sheep element, both getting in a little bit of trouble and just had this thirst for adventure that I can tell you at 53 years old, like I've got it today as much as I did when I was a teenager. And Glen and I were just like two peas in a pod. I mean, we both dropped out of college together. We chased the whole ski snowboard dream together. We hitchhiked to Alaska with no money in our pockets and, all around the West Coast and just to see what we could do. Countless adventures. And, that bond of friendship that turns into brotherhood was just strengthened by every single adventure that we had. And, when we both settled in San Diego, we went through a lot of life change stuff that, we did the ski years together. He went and joined the Navy. He deployed to, the Iraq War. He came back. I moved to San Diego. And then we end up two divorced guys in our late 30s living together in San Diego. Not what we thought our lives were going to be like. But admittedly, we never really planned our lives much. Like I was jokingly saying like, oh yeah, I've got a very non-linear life. Like I never planned like I'm going to be a lawyer and I'm going to go here and I'm going to do this. Whenever I try to do that, life hands me a left turn or a right turn. I'm like, okay, I guess the road's turning. I'm going with it.
Yeah.
And Glen had discipline. He had these great qualities that, again, you kind of bask in that. But that was as my best buddy. Like the SEAL thing meant nothing to me as much as it just proved that this guy that could already do so much could do this one extra thing, which was just cool to be around. It's like, oh yeah, Glen, you want to be a Navy SEAL? Of course you will. And a year later, he's a Navy SEAL. But when Glen pokes you in the belly and says, hey, you should get a little bit fitter. Like, it has an impression. And you know how your best friends are for that stuff.
Yeah.
So when we both started training together, it just lit us up. And then I saw a window, especially through road biking, because I got a couple inches on Glen in height, where I was like, I could beat him. And now I get to beat a Navy SEAL. So that just became this whole other, array of shit talking, banter and pushing each other.
Yes.
So now we're turning 40, but we're pushing each other. And all of a sudden I'm lifting more than I've ever lifted in my life. I'm better at CrossFit based element workout stuff. And I'm going neck and neck with my best friend. What a cool experience.
Yeah.
And we're growing as humans. Like we're learning about ourselves and where we want to go next in our lives. And I'm incredibly fortunate. Like I had my best friend that I've known since I was 11 years old or earlier, right there along my side, going through a divorce, which is an incredibly painful thing to go through. He went through a divorce, incredibly painful thing to go through. And then, I met my wife through Glen, which is the most amazing thing in my life, was like having him be this integral part of that union and that courtship phase. So yeah, man, I mean, he was there for all those key things until he wasn't. And so obviously, like, this is the tragedy part of this stuff, is that Glen, when he got out of the Navy, was contracting for the Central Intelligence Agency, and he was doing GRS work, security work, deploying overseas all over the place. And he was one of the 2 Navy SEALs that was killed in Benghazi, Libya. So the terror attacks on 9/11 from 2012, there was the movie 13 Hours that most folks are familiar with. there were congressional hearings, and Hillary Clinton was the Secretary of State, and she got in a shit ton of trouble for really acting poorly. And my best friend died on that rooftop, saving all those American lives. So these last 12 and a half, 13 years almost has been remembering Glen for the epic human that he was on a personal level, but also sharing that with the rest of the world to hopefully give a little bit of that cast off glow that I was talking about.
Yeah.
A little bit of that inspiration, a little bit of, I don't know, almost normalizing heroism and like in doing great things and trying to make that achievable. So it was unexpected, obviously. And I was the executor of Glen's estate. So I was in charge of all of his legal affairs. I was his listed next of kin on his military paperwork. Wow. So it was a pretty heavy chapter. But now here we are today, and I don't look back with sorrow as much as I kind of have a smile now. I have a smile remembering Glen, and he still casts this glow off of him. It's this North Star that we now have with our company. And of course, like we have a brand. The brand was started as a tribute to Glen and his way of life. Like Glen really stood for these two things, self-improvement, and he was always helping others. Like what a cool North Star. Like my best buddy was there to help you at any given time, advice, moving furniture, like he was your guy. And he was always leveling up. And if you were in his room, if you were in his space, you were going to level up too. Yeah. Could have been drinking one more IPA. Chances are it was a bunch of burpees beforehand.
Yeah, yeah. Sounds like an incredible human, man. And it's really cool when people get to, the legacy lives on past them and through them and what you've created now. Where did the inception of the idea to like the name Bub and Bubs and then the collagen story, like tell me like where the light bulb went off and to start that in his honor?
Yeah, when Glen passed, the original idea to celebrate Glen's life, remember, larger than life personality, Glen's sister and a couple high school friends, we all huddled together and they talked about starting a foundation. Like, let's help special operators, the special forces community transition from active duty to civilian life. And let's do it through scholarship. Like, let's help bridge the gap in the GI Bill. And they started a foundation. We all together started a foundation in early 2013 called the Glen Doherty Memorial Foundation, or GDMF, which is really funny when you think of that acronym on a shirt and you just walk around town with GDMF on it. And let's just say we got a few looks on those early years. But after about 5 years of having the foundation, we were sort of in I wouldn't say a rut, I would say it was on a roll. It was just doing the same thing, issuing 5-10 scholarships a year, a very set fundraising schedule. It's a very small 501c3 nonprofit. And I had these conversations about how to institutionalize charitable giving. And one thing caught my eye, probably in like 2016, I remember being on Amazon and they had this little badge of like, donate to a charity of your choice. And you could like click a little button and offer a donation in your purchase on Amazon Prime to check out. And I was like, that's pretty cool. Like, what if all brands just kind of had that button, like round up to charity or something like that? And I didn't have an answer for it, but it just sparked an idea. Around that same time, my wife Heather and I had our first baby. So we had a son. He was just turning 1 year old. And at that time, I'm like 43, turning 44. My knees are starting to light up. Now I'm getting into 45 and I'm still trying to CrossFit every day and surf and mountain bike and do all the sports, but I'm slowing down. Like I'm feeling the aches and pains. And she comes home, she's a newscaster. So she interviewed someone on the news and heard about this product called Collagen Peptides. And so it's like early 2017, she brings a jar home and she's like, you're supposed to take this stuff. It's going to really help with your achy knees. She's like, literally when you walk up a flight of stairs, you sound like crinkled up newspaper. So let's fix that. And I was game to try anything. So, here we are eating a fairly clean diet and lifestyle. And we've always been on the kind of Mediterranean or paleo style diet. So we kind of toggle between these. And I'm like, what do you want me to add to it? She's like, put a scoop of this in your coffee every morning. I'm like, okay, I'll give it a try. So I put a scoop in my coffee and nothing. I can't taste it, or it tastes a little bit like cow powder, but I drink my coffee. 2 weeks goes by and I haven't noticed anything until like, wait a minute, my fingernails are growing. Data point. I look at the jar of collagen and it says it supports hair, skin, nails, joints, muscle recovery. And I'm like, my joints feel better. I'm sorry, my nails are growing longer. 2 weeks later, I needed a haircut. So now I'm a month in and I'm like, I need a haircut. I just got a haircut and my fingernails are growing like crazy. I feel like I'm the Wolverine right now. Like, what's going on here? And then about a couple weeks later, I'm almost 2 months in. I'll never forget hopping out of bed, cruising around the house, got a 1-year-old, chasing him around. Nothing hurt. We end up flying across country, get off the airplane. I'm crumpled up in the back row. I'm 6'3", so I'm like, I'm stuffed up in the back of the plane. Grab all the kids' stuff off the plane. And I'm like, nothing hurts. Holy crap. What's in this stuff? Yeah. So I didn't bring it with me. I raced out to find a nutrition store to buy another jar so I could keep taking it. And that was it, man. I was hooked. I didn't know what was in it. I didn't know anything about it. I just knew that every single day I felt better. Yeah. And now at 53 years old, like 8 years later, I am absolutely gung-ho on the benefits of collagen. And of course, like I started doing a deep dive, like what is in this stuff? Well, the reason I say all this is because in early 2017, after I had all these great kind of human experiment benefits from collagen, a guy I was doing a work project with came over to the house. We're sitting there sipping coffee and he sees the jar of collagen. He's like, oh, you take that stuff? And he's an e-commerce guy. So he's like, oh, that's a fast trending product on Amazon. Hey, we should start a company. And I was like, yeah, sure, man. My son's learning to walk behind you. Like,
great timing.
Not the best time. But I was like, well, like, what would a company look like? We're sitting here sipping coffee, like, whatever. And we look at each other and we both said, well, if we ever did start a company, we'd have to do something cool for charity. Yeah. And we both said it at the exact same time, like, Jinx, you owe me a Pepsi. Yeah. And a little light bulb went off in my head. It was like that. I was
There's the connection, yeah.
Oh, man. This is exactly the kind of product that Glen would have taken when he was alive. And Glen's got a foundation that we could drive money to do something cool for charity. This all makes sense. And Glen's call sign in the Navy was Bub. So we'll name the company BUBS Naturals as a tribute to Glen and his way of life. A man that stood for self-improvement, and he was always helping others. So it all happened in like 5 minutes. Boom. I called Glen's mom. I called his sister. I called 2 of Glen's SEAL buddies that I was really close with. And they all said the same thing. Glen would kick your ass if you don't do this. Wow. So 6 months later, we launched BUBS Naturals with one SKU, just a jar of collagen peptides. And in that 6 months, I was hell-bent to find the absolute best in quality collagen that you can get, because I was never going to compromise quality when I'm going to put my best friend's name on the jar. Right, right. And I got incredibly lucky. I must have tried a dozen of the worst tasting cow powders on the planet before finding a really good manufacturing partner. And we've been with them ever since. And Amazing. That consistency, the traceability and supply chain, the quality the end product delivered has been awesome. So yeah, man, we're 7+ years in here and lighting it up.
That's amazing, dude. Explain, like, because we'll get into the weeds a little bit, and I fully kind of vibe with your message here, how important this is, but explain it to me like I'm a layman on the street. What is collagen then?
Oh yeah. So collagen is the most abundant protein in the human body. You've got more collagen running through your body than any other protein. Kind of a wild concept because a lot of folks don't even know what collagen is, but it's this protein that's pinging through your body. It is all connective tissue support. So connective tissue. Collagen's a protein that's the glue holding your body together. Hair, skin, nails. That's a lot of your body, right? Especially in your case. And then muscles. This connective tissue of the muscles. Your bones, your joints, your intestines, your guts. When I start rattling that off, you're like, oh yeah, man, that's kind of all of me. Well, collagen is naturally produced in the body. And in your early mid-20s, your body turns off that natural production of collagen. So every year after that, maybe at 23, 24, 25, you lose anywhere from 1% to 2% of your collagen stores each year. Like you're just gradually going down. So by the time you're 35, you might be 10 to 15% down on collagen. By the time you're 45, you're 25+% down, up to 30% down on your collagen stores. Well, what folks found early on was actually through taking gelatin and ingesting bone broth, was that you could offset that by exogenously taking collagen. It triggers your body's own production of collagen. It's kind of like the whole creatine thing. Like your body naturally produces creatine, but you need to supplement creatine to keep triggering that production. Similar concept. So here you are, the most abundant protein in your body, but it's shrinking every single year. So if you take collagen, if you're not getting it from your diet, and you take it in powdered form or pill form or pick your form, you're going to tell your body to keep producing it. Well, where's the proof? The proof's in your hair, skin, nails. It's how your body feels. It's how you're interacting. So here I am at 53, eyeballing the gym outside, fired up. And I can tell you that at 45, that would have been scary because I was going to think about how much it was going to hurt afterwards. So I discovered it, and then I got into the science behind it. I'm like, oh, well, if this is a protein in my body that's depleting, I need to put more of it in me to keep that cycle going. And it's a blend of amino acids that all basically keep your body together like a glue. And it's probably the simplest way I could put it for you.
That's cool, man. That's really cool. And similar, like, because you mentioned, you teased a couple of the ancestral foods that we love here. You mentioned like bone broth, which is really rich in collagen. And, like similar to our products here with the liver and things like that, what we've tried to do is create a product that's convenient for people to get when it's hard to get those things, or they don't know where to source them, or maybe bone broth's not the jam. But also what we've always tried to do, and you tease this a little bit, is like, let's see if we can eat it first. And if we can't eat it, then we can go to the supplement. So what are some real food rich sources of collagen?
So we talked about bone broth, and that's an easy one, but you got to drink a lot of it.
Yeah, it's a lot.
We're talking a lot of bone broth. So if you're good for a half gallon a day or so, like, hey man, let's party. You want to eat a couple pounds of ground beef a day? Yeah. It's one of the best ways you can get your collagen from all that gristle that's inside of there. If you're down for scraping out some bone marrow, you'll get some collagen out of that. Every time you see things like pickled pig's feet, like that gelatin that comes from that, and Jello, like classic
jiggly,
gelatin,
basically,
that's that glue. It's congealing, it's pulling together. So those are hard foods to get in the American diet, period. Like, hey man, you can eat a whole chicken. Well, eat the bones and add that into your diet, and stew it down and get that bone broth out of it. Some skins and hides, not very tasty, especially if it's not coming from a chicken. And so all of a sudden you're kind of limited. So I would say, if you can eat a bunch of bone broth and a bunch of ground beef every single day, 7 days a week, you're going to check off your protein source, and you're going to get a bunch of collagen in there as well. So collagen, incomplete protein, and then meats, full proteins. So remember, there's a balance there. And I'm more interested in the recovery side of my life and that connective tissue support, so that I can keep getting after it and keep going and going. And I know where to get my full proteins. Like I got that baked in the diet. However, man, this collagen thing's really hard to get in our diet. Like, you're not eating tip to tail like we used to. Yeah. That's where supplementation comes in. So what is this powder in the jar? Like, what's in a jar of collagen? It's ground up cowhide. It's a little bit of bone tissue and that joint tissue and that extra kind of waste product. It is literally a waste product from the leather industries, from the tanneries, which is awesome because we're upcycling landfill waste that is super rich in these essential amino acids that help you with, all this connective tissue support. So your arginine, your lysine, your glycine. And glycine is my favorite because glycine, there's 4 grams of glycine in every scoop of BUBS collagen. Well, that's directly linked to my joint health. Glycine produces synovial fluid. Glycine has links to your sleep patterns and health. So, give me more glycine, but give it to me in the most natural form possible. Yeah, ground up cowhide, man. Yeah. And then the goal there is, also, can it be flavorless? And if all this gelatin congeals, which means it's really hard to ingest, can you make one that's super soluble, dissolves well in liquids? And no collagen is going to dissolve well in a glass filled with ice cubes and water. That's going to congeal. Well, can you put it in a blender and agitate it? If the answer is yes, you're in business. Better yet, it's heat tolerant up to 400 plus degrees. Throw it in a cup of tea, throw it in your oatmeal, throw it in, whatever throw it over your eggs in the morning, and you're there. Like, you get it. Just 20 grams a day, and you are fighting the effects of the aging process.
Yeah, it's really cool. The recovery piece is fascinating. That's a big passion of mine too, because similar to your story, I want to be able to do the things I love for a long time. I also stumbled upon like longevity research too. Like, if we eat too much muscle meat, which is really rich in an amino acid methionine, that if you balance those levels with your glycines and your prolines, that it provides this like anti-aging and longevity effect too. So you've got a myriad of reasons to be looking to get more of this. Look after your joint. Who doesn't want a full head of hair? Who doesn't want the nails healthy, the gut healthy? It's maybe going to help you live longer. It's certainly going to help your joints recover after the gym. Like, it's a win-win for me. And I'm trying now to Collagen Max. I'm just trying to chuck it in everything that I eat, but also for my kids too, because I think I didn't become aware of this until my mid to late 20s. And I was not eating nose to tail or tip to tail as you used it. My parents weren't doing any of that. I didn't have any gelatinous stuff. So just like maybe even starting to like saturate the tissues earlier maybe builds a bigger reserve bank, so that as those ages decline and the collagen shrinks, that I want my kids to be like the glue. I want a lot of the glue. So I'm like doing gummies for them. And if I make a stew, I put extra glycine and the collagen in there. What are some of your favorite ways to get sneaky and get collagen in the diet? Or what are some of the most creative ways you've seen customers use it and stuff?
So it's funny, like the whole oatmeal cereal thing is probably one of the go-tos, because like, you know, I've got folks who are like, oh, I drink a smoothie in the morning. I'm like, perfect, there you go, done. Yeah. We're big coffee drinkers. Yeah. Coffee is such a layup, because a good, well-roasted coffee doesn't get turned off by having a quality collagen product inside of it. So I'm like, cool, scoop it there in the morning. Oatmeal is one of my favorites. Any soups or stews, or again, even if you're going to make a chicken soup out of like the carcass of a whole chicken. It's funny you said that about the kids. Our version of eating, you know, tip to tail back then was, you know, you could eat the Pope's nose, which is basically the butt end with that rich fattiness from a chicken or roasted turkey or something like that. Or you get...
I've never heard that. That's hilarious.
Got that one from the old man. And then, you know, like a chicken thigh, but on the bone. On the bone, and, the drumstick, like, you know, eating off the bone. Yep. Like things we just don't do, but like they naturally do good things for your teeth. Like, why do they used to say in the dentist office to eat apples every day? Because you're literally ripping that crap off your teeth, and it's a natural cleanser. And I just look at it like, hey, these are easy things I can do. I'll eat an apple, no big deal. If I can eat off the bone, killer. I'll make sure my steaks are T-bones, you know, or, you know, if it's a ribeye, it's on the bone or whatnot. For the kids, anywhere you can sneak it in is fair game. But the beauty is like, oh, you know, if you're in a rush and you're like, oh shoot, you know, the kids are gonna have mac and cheese tonight. Not ideal. Yeah. But if you're in that position, throw it in there. Yeah. Because they're not gonna know the difference. And then in their little organic powdered cheesy ones, if you go high end, they're getting their collagen. Yeah. More importantly, like, you know, if you know what they're eating in the morning, like you can just work it in. Scrambled eggs, boom, goes right in there. Yes. It's unflavored. It's heat tolerant. So like you can work it in. Like, are you into baked goods? If that's your thing, put it in your cookies and your scones and your stuff. Not for this audience, of course, but you know, for those other folks that like to bake.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, we're doing that as well. We're trying to be sneaky. The great thing about collagens and like yours with the unflavored aspect is huge, because it really opens up a lot of doors. The one downside of things like liver is they're a little bit, you know, they're flavorful. They're very flavorful. So,
but that's why you pair with onions.
There you go.
And then the onions mask everything, or so that was the old adage.
That was the old idea, but it's an acquired taste. You can get used to it. But even still, the good thing about like the kid angle is like a little bit goes a long way. You know, they might not necessarily need a full 20-gram scoop, and they don't need a full, you know, ounce and a half of liver. But if I can think about the long-term mentality where I open one of our pills, for example, and sprinkle some liver on, or sneak it into a gummy, or with the collagen thing that we're doing these days is making the marshmallows, and if I let them, they'd crush a whole tray and probably get like 40 grams of collagen in there. It'd be amazing, you know.
Yeah, they're going heavy on that one for sure.
It's fun. It's just fun to think about. And I think, just these forgotten things. Like, we live in a modern world that convenience can sometimes be our downfall, but sometimes convenience in the right way, in an intentional way, like a good clean product, is also hugely beneficial when we live crazy lives and we're bopping all over the place, and maybe we're traveling out of town. I'm coming to Austin and I don't know that I can get my usual, you know, clean chicken and want to know on the bone, so I can throw a pack in or something like that. It's really, really useful.
Yep, hands down. And I mean, this, we're solving a problem. It was a personal problem. Selfishly, most everything we make as a company is to solve a problem around human performance, aging, longevity, and they're absolute cousins to what you guys do. And I can tell you at 35, you're ahead of the game, right? I didn't even think about this stuff until I was in my late 30s, early 40s, exposure to CrossFit, paleo diet. Like, I didn't think about any of that stuff before then. But once your eyes are open to it, you're like, oh, wait, there's a bigger world out here.
Yeah.
And I feel better when I eat this way, which means I'm going to perform better at the gym, or I'm more alert. I'm better in meetings. I'm more in tune with my world. Cool, let's go with it. And for us, all the product lines that we have now linked to those concepts, linked to that basis of self-improvement. If I have a quality electrolyte, am I going to perform better at the gym? Am I going to be more alert, and I'm not going to be dehydrated, which is linked to cognition? Am I going to be better off for any gym stuff I want to do? Collagen is a baseline for the foundation of my health. MCT oil, that coconut oil, am I mentally focused? Do I have energy for hours? All of these things just plucked right from nature.
Yeah.
I'm all about them.
Yeah.
And I'm selfishly, I'm creating product lines because I'm 53.
Yep.
And I got a couple years on you, but when you're 53, I guarantee if jumping down a mountain is your thing, you're not going to want to do it at half speed.
No.
You're going to want to do it exactly balls to the wall like you did when you were in your 20s.
Yeah.
And yeah, you might approach it a little bit more cautiously in terms of line selection and how you're going to get down that mountain, but you're going to want to go full tilt.
Yeah, you're going to want
to. I love that.
Yeah. You reminded me of, Mark Sisson, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Mark's the man, and he is 70 years old now. And he's been banging the drum about collagen for probably more than anybody. And it's because he talks about all the stuff we've just talked about. We stopped chewing gnawing on the chewy bits and all of that stuff. So he's been a big proponent of collagen and stuff. But it just reminds me of exactly what you're saying. He's still a badass. He's 70 years old. He's running around. In fact, he attributes much of his healing, because I don't know if you know, he just kind of recently got a hip replacement. And he posted on his Twitter the other day that he was back running full speed sprints on the beach. This is like less than 6 months after a major surgery, and attributes a lot of his speedy recovery, because most 70 years old after that, they're not getting back to probably even light activity. No. And he's out there slacklining, playing ultimate frisbee, riding his bike, sprinting on the beach, living life to the full. And he says he attributes a lot of that healing to obviously his training before that prepared his body to be strong.
Yeah. And he was ready for the surgery.
He was ready. But collagen being huge because all of that healing and the sutures and the wounds and the muscles coming back together and the ligaments. And I think this is just something that, most of us have forgotten. And ideally, I wish we could wave a magic wand and we could all go back to at least ancestral eating patterns and eating nose to tail. But the truth of it is most of us aren't. And this is why you solve a problem for yourself that ends up benefiting hopefully millions of people too in the process.
You just nailed it. You're at 35, you're on the front end of this. Your body feels great, you recover well, but hey, we don't eat the way we used to eat. And as much as you can try and incorporate that into your home, hey, at Cooksville, we're going to have a farm and we're going to do this. We are going to literally eat the tail. We're going to have those moments of grabbing in between the cartilage in there and pulling that essential foods from the tail of the animal. Man, that's a rare thing.
Yeah.
And it's hard to stay up with that. It could also be expensive, but rare meaning it's hard to find. So find your local butcher, navigate the animal to get into those pieces. But you're creating a lifestyle that is very hard to live in today's modern society where we're moving fast. We live in cities where you want to have solutions to that. Okay, well, past your bone broths and past boiling down the chicken into a good hearty liquid, you have to supplement. Yeah. And unfortunately, that's the position that we're in. But the fortunate thing is we have, call it science, if you will, on our side to be able to take a ground up cowhide, this inner fascia tissue, dip it into an enzyme bath, dry it out, lift up these amino acids, and spray dry it out and crumble it up, and all of a sudden you've got this fine powder. And then you got Mark Sisson doing sprints down the beach at age 70, who used to train at SEALFIT. So
no way.
Yeah.
That's funny, man. I wanted to talk to you about SEALFIT because I've heard you call it like a rite of passage almost, and I feel like that's another one of these things that is somewhat missing in our culture as we get, dare I say, maybe increasingly soft, a little bit entitled. We're in that territory, and something like these initiatory experiences, the Kokor, I believe it's
Yep.
called, like the kind of like a Navy SEAL Hell Week kind of replication thing. Just this willingness to do really hard things to find out who you are when every fiber of your being wants to quit, to come out of it transformed. Like how instrumental was that for you to lead that, go through it, coach it?
So, phenomenal question. We are soft. Like, make no mistakes, man. We're soft now. And we have opportunities to be hard. And hard doesn't mean like, wear a leather jacket hardcore. Hard just means show yourself that you can do hard things, because we get faced with hard things every single day in our lives. Well, it's how you respond to getting hit with those hard things. That's where character is formed, and that's where you have an opportunity to level up, not play the victim, but like step into a bigger role. So, when I was 38, turning 39, I was at SEALFIT. I was all in on this experience. I didn't know a lot about the SEALFIT camps, like the Kokoro camp. I knew they happened on these weekends a couple times a year, and I knew it was mostly for high school kids and early 20-something-year-olds that would pay extra money to go through a simulated Navy SEAL Hell Week to prep them to then get their papers, join the Navy, go through basic training, and then ultimately go into BUDS training if they were selected and go through the process. So kids would pay, $1,000, $2,000 to live at this gym in Encinitas and just get the crap kicked out of them. And then it all culminated with this 50 to 60 hour camp. So you'd start Friday around lunchtime and you would finish Sunday sometime late in the afternoon. And I kind of watched it in the periphery, but I didn't know a lot about it. I didn't really care. It wasn't my thing. I'm not 20 and I'm not trying to join the Navy. I was 39. But this guy, Danny Miller, who was the head coach at the gym, Rory had moved on. He was off being a Hollywood celebrity and doing the face of the CrossFit Games. And Danny kind of called it out to me one day. He's like, "Hey, we should do this." And he was another civilian. He was actually an old ski bum, an old bump skier. And I'm like, "Yeah, man, sure, whatever." Like, I blew it off. A couple months later, "No, man, we should really do this." And then Glenn got in my ear, and Glenn's a little bit like, "Yeah, you should do that." Now, Glenn's snickering because he's just like, "Oh, yeah, like."
Yeah, you don't know what you're in for.
You don't know what you're in for. So I knew very little about it. But I'm always up for a challenge. So after the third time of getting ribbed by my buddy Danny Miller, I'm like, "You know what? Fine, let's do it." And I was still joking. Like, I wasn't actually serious. Well, he rolls into the gym that day. It was called the Grinder because we worked out in this kind of glorified parking lot. And he's like, "I got an announcement to make, everyone. Sean's doing going to do the Kokoro camp at SEALFIT." And everyone cheers it on. "Yeah." Mark Devine walks up and shakes my hand. He's like, "I'm really proud of you, son. You really need to do this." And I'm like, what did I just do to myself?
Yeah.
So I'll never forget showing up that day or the day before the camp. And I'm like walking around and I'm like, you get a gear list of things you're supposed to bring. And I didn't do anything special other than this was the training we already did. And I'm like, "Guys, where do we sleep? Like, well, I'm here till Sunday. Like, I bring a sleeping bag, but it's not on the gear list." And like the instructors are chuckling because they're like, "Oh yeah, you sleep up there." And like they point to this like apartment on the second story. I'm like, "Oh, I didn't know that." They're like, yeah, it's all fitted with bunk beds. I'm like, "Oh, okay, cool." No idea. So the morning of, we show up it was like 5:30, 6 in the morning, show up at the camp. And that's where I met my wife. She was there as a newscaster, showcasing the facility, interviewing Mark. She interviewed me a little bit, not really, just kind of pointed a camera at me on live TV. I smiled a goofy little smile. 13 years later, here we are.
That's crazy.
Wow. But I literally went into this camp somewhat ignorant. I mean, I knew in general that I was going to leave it on Sunday afternoon. The thought of quitting going into the camp never occurred to me. But I also had no idea what I was in for. And once we were probably 6 hours into the camp. We'd done this workout called morphed, which, is famous in CrossFit. We did it with sandbags in our backpacks. So we actually had like 30, 40 pounds on us. We had a hard time commit of 1 hour or you get kicked out of the camp. So we all had to do it in less than an hour. And you're doing it with 30 something pounds. The mile run was more than a mile. Like, it was all these like crazy things to scramble your head. Yeah. Because you're hoping for like the exact mile. And they're like, "No, keep going." I'm like, "No, but the mile's here. I'm a coach here. I know this." They're like,
"Keep going."
Keep going. Right. So there was a series of mental mind fucks every hour, every couple hours. And it was highs and lows. So what I learned is I went into that camp as an individual. I had one friend, Dan Miller. I didn't know anyone else in the camp. There was 50 of us. And within hours, there was 40 of us. Within, the next day, there was 30 of us. Like they were just peeling off left and right. Yeah. And we didn't even notice at first because you're so in your own world of just hatred, fear, pain. What's happening next, pain, like all the bad stuff's happening.
Yeah.
I'll never forget, early Saturday morning, now we're at like 2 o'clock in the morning, and my buddy Danny looks at me, he's like, I can't do this anymore. I'm out. And I grab him and I'm like, the fuck you are. You dragged me into this shit. You're sticking with me. And everyone has their weak moment. Everyone has their Achilles heel. Everyone has that, I can't do this anymore. Now think about that statement. That applies in life. We all encounter those moments. But I had this guy there and I pulled him out of that moment. I didn't even know I was pulling him out of that moment. Quite frankly, at the time, I felt like I was just pissed off and I'm like, the fuck, you're not quitting. And fast forward 6-7 hours, they had us in and out of the ocean. And the ocean was probably 60, 65 degrees. Like it was chilly, it was brisk. And I was freezing. I found my Achilles. That was it. I didn't want to be cold. I was miserable. No ice bath in my history. It's like 2010, right? Like I didn't know anything about that stuff.
Yeah.
And I was frozen solid. And I'm shivering and shivering and shivering. And I'll never forget, Mark Devine walks up to me and he takes a picture of me. As I'm like looking at the camera, like blue in the face. And it was what I needed to turn the corner because I was ready to quit. I was ready to walk away and just get out of there. Like, this is not worth it. Like, that's it. And then he brought humor in. And all of a sudden I was able to laugh. Cold, freezing cold, but I could laugh. And there was a series of those moments. And all of a sudden I realized that as I was cold, I was leaning up against the guy next to me and he was leaning into me and we're like squeezing each other. And all of a sudden there's this photo of the four of us like sandwiched in together, just trying to stay warm. And that was teamwork. And all of a sudden teamwork unlocked a growth chapter in that. I didn't recognize this until probably weeks later. In the moment it was, okay, I can't quit because you're going to be bummed. If you quit, I'm going to be bummed. We need each other to get through this evolution. And teamwork developed. And all of a sudden, I wasn't one anymore. I was the 20-something of us that were left on Sunday morning. And each step that we went through, each evolution, each exercise, every lecture, because they were also teaching you about yourself, we just got stronger and stronger and stronger. We connected more and more and more until there was no way they were going to peel us off and get us to quit. And they were trying to do that. That's part of the experience. Hey, if you can't figure that out, you don't deserve to be here. And holy crap, it was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. And at 4 something in the afternoon on Sunday, they secured us. So the 20 of us that were left, less than half of us that were left, or there was like 15 of us, I think, we made it through. We were in a daze. We were totally confused, but we all were like, we didn't want to leave each other. We were brothers. Like we were connected. And it was super insightful. And it was the hardest thing I'd ever done in my life. I mean, I cannot express that enough. Like I climbed a 26-mile mountain. I climbed Mount Palomar in the middle of this exercise at 4 o'clock in the morning. We were in and out of the ocean swimming. We were doing morphed as just 1 hour of 55, 60 hours of work. Since that time, I've been faced with adversity that pales in comparison. And I've been faced with some adversity that's pretty severe in different ways. Like some of it's work related, some of it's emotional, some of it's, relationship related. And I've had that to lean back on as a fuel, as an anchor, as a source of, hey, you've been through worse. You've been through this. You can attack this. You can address this. You can put this in context. It's an incredibly valuable thing to have gone through. Yeah. But you can't just rest on your laurels and be like, I went through Kokoro 13 years ago. Yeah. So like 5 years ago, I did another version of that. I did a Go Ruck challenge. I did what's called the Star Course. It's a 50-mile ruck, 20-pound backpack. You start at 9 o'clock at night. You finish at 5 o'clock in the afternoon the next day. And you're just walking 50 miles. Wow. And I did it with a couple buddies. And we finished it in, 19 hours. So we finished it under the timeline. You win a patch for your experience. I wanted to quit that thing so fucking bad, 3 o'clock in the morning. And I'm like, what am I doing? Marching up to the Point Loma Cemetery. I'm like, this is the most miserable I've ever been in my life. And then I remembered, no, it's not. You've had it worse.
Yeah.
And you can get through this. And this guy next to you, he'd be really disappointed in you if you quit.
Yeah.
So is your business partner going to be disappointed in you if you don't bring your A game? Yeah. If you slack off in a workout, you can get away with it once or twice, but come on, man, bring your best. Your relationship, bring your best.
Bring it.
Your children, don't phone it in. You know, like those things become part of those experiences. And then I'm lucky to call Michael Easter, a friend of mine. He's an author who's written a phenomenal book called The Comfort Crisis.
Yeah.
He should be on the show.
Yeah.
And what Michael talks a lot about, you know, in The Comfort Crisis is, of course, as a modern society, like we're soft. We've got it really easy. And he proposes a misogi, a challenge. And the only rule in his challenge is don't die.
Yeah.
But be ready to fail. Man, like reading that book, reading The Comfort Crisis was so inspiring to me, like it kind of lit me up. And yeah, I've done the Kokoro. I've done my 50 miler. I've got my eyes set on a new one. Jesse Itzler has a really neat summiting Mount Everest program called 29029. It's meant to simulate the 29,029 feet of summiting Mount Everest.
Wow.
And like, he does it at ski resorts, you know, around North America. It's always sold out, and I'm hoping to get a pass in there somehow, someday. But I'm like, cool, probably gonna fail. Probably can't make it up that. Let's try.
Let's try it. Yeah.
Glenn joining the Navy, right?
Yeah.
Join Navy SEALs. No one ever makes it through there. Yeah, let's try. Like, it's just bringing that energy into life and trying those hard things and accepting that when other hard things happen to you that maybe you're not looking for, you're prepared for them.
Boom.
You've got the right tools in the tool belt to deal with life.
Dude, I love it. It's so, I hope everybody can taste that, and I hope they seek it out, because life, like you said, it's going to give you some unchosen suffering. It's gonna do it. It comes for all of us. And if you've been the kind of person that has sought out the chosen suffering, then when it does find you, you're just a little bit more ready, and you've got a little bit more experience of being in the trenches, whatever that means for you. So you can say, I've done hard things before. I know that I can survive when I feel like I can't go any further. I know what I can do when I feel like I'm about to die. And I think it's just so important. And I think that it's extra important in particular, or just maybe more bonding to do it with some of the bros. You know, like I really do feel like men bond through a shared suffering. Like some of my best relationships are because we suffer on the daily together, or the guys that I've gone to war with in MMA or in the jiu-jitsu gym, like, because there is just something about that, like where we proverbially, maybe sometimes literally physically put it all on the line. Yes. And you're like, I see that in you, and like, yeah, we get each other. There's some like unwritten code of conduct, you know, and I think that's so special. I mean, you know, it's funny. There's these cliche experiences like iron sharpens iron, and that's true. Like, surround yourself with great people, see what you're made of. Like, even if you're the weakest link, become a stronger link. Yeah. They're going to help you out, whether it's just, you're just going to draft off of that. That's that glow I talked about. Like, I'm lucky I got to hang around with a bunch of Navy SEALs. Why? Well, because my best buddy was one. Yeah. And guess what? They're all a bunch of adrenaline junkies. And here I am, you know, sponsored snowboarder, hanging around a bunch of adrenaline sports. Yeah. Oh, yeah, it makes sense. Yeah. And now, decades later, I'm really lucky to be able to call Mike Ritland up on the phone and have a conversation with him about business and life and parenting, and, you know, and Clint Emerson, and like these guys that, in my opinion, have done great things with their career, and then, you know, getting out of the Navy, and these were Glenn's best friends. Epic. You know, Shane Hyde, if I ever want a knife made to carve up some good meat, I'm calling Shane. Yeah. And having these guys in my phone and in my life, I'm grateful for. Yeah. And to have in anyone around you that you see that's an inspiration that lifts you up. It can be a little intimidating, so lean into it. Yeah. Get intimidated. Come out a little bit stronger and better on the back end. And, you know, like your 5 a.m. workout buddies, like, that's gross. Yeah. On one level, it's like, that's really hard to move your body like that well, that early. But hey, man, that's your window. Mm-hmm. And your choices: do nothing, get fat, or do that and not get fat. Cool, man. That's absolutely right. And to add to that, it was me going through that exact thing that you talked about, that I've always had a knack for picking up things pretty well. And it's kind of that classic, you know, you could be the guy in the MMA gym, staying in your local gym, you know, beating everybody up, thinking you're king of the hill. Yeah. Jumping into CrossFit, a brand new sport where I'm essentially getting beat in workouts by Linda, the 45-year-old mom, when she's smoking me on double unders and chest to bar because I don't know how to do anything, and complete humbling myself. And then seeing that band of savages at 5 a.m. that Rory's one of, and these other guys that I am so far below. And my ego's a little bit hurt in that because I'm like, the gap is so wide, but then joining them and slowly closing the gap, because that's the only way you do it, you know? Like, there's no growth in comfort. No. And funnily enough, there's no comfort in growth. You have to go through that compression. Yeah. And it feels gnarly and gross sometimes, but on the other side of it, it's the best feeling in the world to know that, like, yeah, I did that, I chose that, and I got through it, and I'm better for it now. Yeah. And it could be revisiting old things that you've done before and making them new again, or it's a brand new sport. Like, why do I love CrossFit 17 years later? Because it's always new. Always new. Whatever I'm going to do out there, I might recycle a workout, or I might see if someone wrote something on the board and be like, cool, I'm going to go grab that. Why? It's different. It's varied. It keeps me interested. It keeps me engaged, and it's hard. Yeah. And doing hard things matters. Yeah. And there's a period of compression, and you come out of it maybe a little bit sharper, which means when your kids are screaming at you at 9 o'clock at night, and they don't go to bed on time, and you're like at your wit's end, you kind of go, I learned box breathing. I can calm myself down. I can regulate myself so that I bring them the right energy to calm them down and get them off to bed. And it sounds really simple, but like anyone who's dealt with the spazzing out kids knows that it's not always that easy. And we're all going to snap, but maybe you snap a little bit less because you got that discipline. And that discipline is learned through some hard work. It's learned through adversity. That's right. And man, I'm all about those experiences. Yeah. And doing the thing too, you actually have to do it, because as much as, like you mentioned, Michael Easter, incredible book, like a big light bulb one for me too. I've quoted on this podcast numerous times, and like podcasts like this, and you can listen to them and get all of these good ideas and this little bit of motivation and inspiration, but you still have to actually go and do the thing. This isn't something you can take in a supplement. Our liver pills aren't going to make you harder. Your collagen isn't going to make anybody harder. It's not going to give them that. It still is going to require you just showing up and getting your hands dirty. Yeah. It's funny you say that, because I was literally like, the first thought in my head is, I'm like, I provide all the tools for your body's recovery, longevity, energy, pick your poison. We're going to help you get there. You still got to lace up those shoes and go and do it. Or in your case, don't lace up the shoes and go get it. Exactly. Yeah. Just raw dog it and get out there. Just get out there and do it. But like, if we can inspire, awesome. That's why we're here. BUBS is here to inspire folks. Yeah. And, we were talking about pillars of the brand, and I was like, hey guys, quality's right there. But inspiration and education are huge parts of what we need to do. We need to educate folks on the nutrition that they need to be able to take, just like you guys do. We need to inspire them to want to take activity. Well, my version of inspiration probably has to do with it snowing on a mountain, or riding a mountain bike, or surfing, or doing something outdoors related, but it's sport related. It's accomplishing a feat. It's climbing a mountain. It's doing something that just makes you feel a little bit better on the back end of it. Yeah. You might suffer during it, but you're better on the back end of it. And if a brand can help you shape a high quality of life, inspire you to do the right things, educate you on why and on how to do it, man, what a cool feeling. Yeah, you got all the ingredients. You just got to turn the heat up a little bit. And that's exactly what I hope we're doing with conversations like this, and amazing connections with brands like yours that are all trying to ultimately do the same thing in slightly different vehicles, empower people and help them get better. Amen. So let's start bringing this one into land, man. You're in town for the Health Optimization Summit. You're gonna be all up in the crowd over here. It's a very aligned message with this. What's your hope for the weekend? What are you here for? You're just trying to connect and have a good time? What's going on? So I got connected with the founder, Tim Gray, and Tim sought me out because he received our product, our collagen peptides, at an event that he was attending. So he reached out to the owner of the event. He said, I need to meet the BUBS people. And it took a little while. We got linked up. We ended up doing a Zoom call. And he's like, hey, man, I'm a big biohacker. I'm pretty known in the space. I've got this event coming up in the United States. And I was at this other event. I tried your collagen. And it's the best collagen I've ever tried. And he's like, man, I've tried everything. And I was like, wow, that's really high praise. Like, thank you so much. He's like, I want to have that product there. I don't need any sponsors. We're already sold out, but I'd love to have you there. And I'm like, well, listen, I don't believe in coming to a show, just to be a sponge. Like, I want to bring value. So if you got our product and had a great experience, let me bring ours. Mm-hmm. And he's like, really? That'd be amazing. So I'm like, yeah. So we worked out a deal to basically bring BUBS to the Health Optimization Summit,
have a table there, bring our product out. Me personally, I'll be working the table to meet folks. I want to learn about the community and what they're interested in and get that education. And then on top of that, Gary Brecka's going to be there. Chris Williamson's going to be there. JJ Virgin's there. Like, these really inspirational, educational, awesome folks are giving keynotes and talking. We work with Max Legavere. Like, I want to listen to what he has to say. And there's just a bunch of cool folks. And Tim has done a phenomenal job of pulling this community together and at the absolute highest level, bringing a platform for education, inspiration, those things that we believe in and love. And it's going to be on full display in Austin this weekend, so I can't wait for it.
Dope. So good. Yeah, we've been doing more events recently, and there's nothing quite like interacting with your customer base, and people walk past to get the curious, and then, there can be a customer for life and really reap the rewards of all of this stuff. It's really cool, man. So this will go out obviously after the event, but hopefully you saw us, the presence of our brands there, and you're joining the tribe, and welcome. And just continue to kick butt, man. Where can people go to keep up with BUBS and what you're getting up to? Yeah, so our website's kind of the hub, BUBSNaturals.com, and there you can spiderweb onto, you can find us on Amazon, Amazon Choice, Amazon Prime, but BUBSNaturals.com, and then all of our social handles are at BUBS Naturals, so BUBSNaturals, and that's, across all your social stuff. And we're out there, and, we use real live customer service folks, and real people.
Reach out.
Let's
real
go.
People, I'm all about it.
Yeah.
And they can reach out directly to me. Any questions, any comments, any thoughts? Like, we're here for all of it.
Amazing, man. I appreciate you coming out. This was awesome.
Dude, thank you. Thanks so much.
You lot, stay radical. We'll see you next time. Peace out, friends. All right, friends, thanks for tuning in to another episode of Radical Health Radio. We got a fresh new podcast for you every Wednesday. If you enjoyed the show, consider liking, subscribing, reviewing, and rating us on your podcast platform. It helps us spread this message of radical health. We'll see you next week.